Picture this scenario. An entire ocean choke point, the most strategically vital stretch of water on planet Earth, has just been transformed into a death trap. Beneath the surface, naval mines lie waiting in the dark, dozens of them already positioned, with hundreds more ready to be deployed at a moment's notice to shatter the hulls of commercial supertankers. On the surface of the water, explosive-laden suicide boats are actively hunting anything that moves to sow utter destruction across the shipping lanes. On the rugged, mountainous coastlines, hidden shore-based missile batteries are locked onto every single ship within radar range, primed to fire devastating anti-ship cruise missiles. And behind all of this formidable arsenal stands a regime that has openly told the world, "We will set American soldiers on fire the moment they touch our soil." This is the terrifying, volatile, and exact situation in the Strait of Hormuz right now, in April 2026. It is a crisis of unprecedented magnitude, a highly explosive military and geopolitical standoff that threatens to paralyze the free world and plunge the global economy into a devastating depression. If you want to understand the true underlying dynamics behind this imminent global conflict, make sure you subscribe to the Global News 24 and enable notifications right now, because this situation is evolving minute by minute, and you absolutely need to be the first to know the truth. Before the world was suddenly plunged into this chaotic uncertainty, the Strait of Hormuz was the undisputed, beating lifeline of the global economy. According to comprehensive data published by the U.S. Energy Information Administration and the International Energy Agency, an average of 20 million barrels of crude oil and petroleum products flowed peacefully through this narrow corridor every single day. That is the equivalent of roughly 1/5 of total global petroleum liquids consumption and more than 1/4 of total global seaborne oil trade. But the stakes are not merely limited to crude oil. As reported by the International Energy Agency, in 2025, just over 112 billion cubic meters of liquefied natural gas transited the strait, equating to almost 20% of global LNG trade. Almost 90% of these massive natural gas volumes were destined for the energy-hungry Asian markets, keeping the lights on in megacities across China, Japan, India, and South Korea. Or at least, that is how the system used to function. Because since February 28th, the day the United States and Israel jointly launched the massive and unprecedented Operation Epic Fury, that vital energy flow has essentially and brutally stopped dead in its tracks. As announced by U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth in an official statement published by the Department of War, the overarching mission of Operation Epic Fury is explicitly and unyieldingly laser-focused to completely destroy Iranian offensive missiles, absolutely annihilate their subterranean missile production facilities, and systematically dismantle their naval and security infrastructure so they can never threaten the region again. However, the immediate geopolitical fallout has been catastrophic for worldwide maritime trade. Stranded in the suffocating, tense waters of the Persian Gulf are nearly 15 million barrels per day of crude oil. Major and historically reliable producers like Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates find themselves with absolutely nowhere to send their massive daily production. The cascading consequences on the stock markets and the real economy are truly terrifying to behold. Oil prices that stood at a stable, manageable level of $67 a barrel on February 27th are now trading frantically above $112. The most pessimistic financial analysts in the industry are not ruling out the disastrous mark of $150. In the hyper-anxious corridors of Wall Street, as reported by Bloomberg, some executives are even whispering the apocalyptic figure of $200 a barrel. The global economy is literally bleeding out, one barrel at a time, and Washington now has a crucial, civilization-altering decision to make. A decision that could rapidly become one of the most consequential military choices in modern American history. But to truly grasp the sheer complexity of what the Pentagon and U.S. Central Command are currently preparing, we must thoroughly analyze the relentless mathematical, technical, and geographical reality of the Strait of Hormuz. Based on nautical charts and intelligence from maritime security firms, this critical maritime passage measures only 21 nautical miles at its narrowest point between the Iranian coast and the Musandam Peninsula of Oman. However, the navigable shipping lanes, the specific channels that are deep and secure enough for massive, very large crude carriers to safely transit, are merely 2 miles wide in each direction, separated by a 2-mile buffer zone. It is the absolute strategic equivalent of forcing almost all the vital energy trade of the Eastern Hemisphere through the eye of a needle. And as reported by the International Energy Agency, the overland pipeline export alternatives are woefully insufficient to offset this monumental blockade. The existing alternative network, primarily including the Saudi East-West pipeline and the UAE's Habshan-Fujairah pipeline, only has an estimated 2.6 million barrels per day of available bypass capacity in the event of a total supply disruption. That leaves a staggering, insurmountable daily deficit of millions of barrels. The global financial market knows this dark reality. White House strategists know this, and most importantly, Tehran knows this perfectly well, utilizing it as their ultimate leverage. It is very precisely upon this catastrophic global logistical vulnerability that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy has meticulously built its asymmetric deterrent strategy over the past 3 decades. They call it the Mosaic Defense. The entire coastal and naval zone has been systematically transformed into an intimately layered, deep fortified environment characterized by maximum unpredictable risk. Unlike a conventional Western Navy that relies on massive multi-billion-dollar destroyers and expensive guided missile frigates, the IRGC naval forces operate in a completely irregular, decentralized manner. As detailed in a thorough intelligence analysis by the Gulf International Forum, Iranian forces saturate the region, operating with highly agile C-14 class missile boats and Tandar class fast attack craft. These exceptionally small naval platforms, which require tiny crews of sometimes fewer than a dozen personnel and are astonishingly inexpensive to mass produce, are formidably adapted to the shallow coastal labyrinth of the Persian Gulf. They operate seamlessly from concealed shore-based facilities and highly dispersed weapons depots hidden within natural bays and civilian coastal islands, functioning as highly lethal launch points for devastating swarm attacks designed to overwhelm advanced radar systems. Even worse for the approaching Western forces, according to a recent detailed report by the Observer Research Foundation, Iran possesses a terrifying underwater arsenal, conservatively estimated at 3,000 to 4,000 naval mines of various highly advanced types. The existential threat posed by these invisible, submerged weapons is not merely theoretical or historical. The systematic laying of these sophisticated acoustic or magnetic-triggered explosive devices from unmarked, ordinary-looking civilian fishing dhows makes preventative detection by high-altitude satellite intelligence almost completely impossible. Modern asymmetric naval mine warfare does not even need to actually sink dozens of expensive warships to achieve total success. The simple, cold mathematical probability and the mere rumor spreading across trading floors that a strait is actively mined are more than enough to instantly paralyze the international maritime insurance industry. Insurance companies immediately suspend their coverage entirely or aggressively hike war risk premiums to financially unsustainable levels, effectively freezing global trade in its tracks without a single shot being fired. As an Iranian military spokesperson recently told state television networks during a defiant broadcast, their comprehensive strategy relies explicitly on ensuring that commercial transit in the region cannot possibly resume until an exhaustive, prolonged, and highly perilous countermine mission is successfully completed by adversary naval forces. Faced with this insidious, multifaceted blockade, the international military chessboard becomes absolutely fascinating and terrifying to observe. Iran's parliament speaker was extremely clear and uncompromising during a martial address broadcast on national television, stating categorically that American soldiers touching Iranian soil will face everything Iran has left to throw to fiercely retaliate and ruthlessly defend its sovereign territory. But Washington's tactical, kinetic response was swift, overwhelming, and it does not rely solely on heavy, slow-moving B-52 bombers flying at high altitudes dropping conventional munitions. We are currently witnessing the massive, real-time deployment of advanced maritime and amphibious assault assets possessing unmatched surgical flexibility. As officially confirmed by the U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet Command in a recent public briefing, the strategic arrival of the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli in the combat theater marks a major tactical turning point that has shaken diplomatic chancelleries across the globe. This massive vessel is not a traditional aircraft carrier in the conventional sense. The America-class USS Tripoli, designated LHA-7, is an engineering marvel designed from the ground up for the most complex, aggressively forward-deployed expeditionary operations. It is powerfully armed with RIM-116 rolling airframe missile systems and Phalanx close-in weapon systems for self-defense, but its true power lies in its offensive cargo. The Tripoli permanently embarks the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, a terrifying, highly mobile force of roughly 2,500 elite soldiers, rigorously trained for the most brutal and complex amphibious and aerial assaults. As Colonel Chris Nidziocha, the commanding officer of the 31st MEU, clearly explained in an operational press release, his forces are inherently flexible, immediately responsive, and perfectly positioned to rapidly conduct joint, maritime, and amphibious multi-domain military operations across the theater. They are directly supported by an embarked detachment of ultra-advanced F-35B Lightning II stealth fighter jets from Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 242. These fifth-generation technological marvels feature revolutionary short takeoff and vertical landing capabilities, providing the Expeditionary Strike Group with unprecedented stealth, advanced sensor fusion, and strike flexibility that far exceeds any legacy aircraft. Additionally, the Tripoli carries squadrons of MV-22 Osprey tilt-rotor aircraft. These magnificent machines are capable of heavily deploying fully equipped combat troops deep behind enemy lines at the rapid speed of a fixed-wing turboprop airplane, while possessing the unique ability to land vertically in confined spaces exactly like a traditional helicopter. The overarching operational objective of assembling such a highly specialized armada is not simply to drop smart bombs safely from the clouds. The targeted deployment of a capital ship with such highly specialized expeditionary warfare capabilities signifies, without a shadow of a doubt, the potential immediate preparation for physically securing key terrestrial installations, violently neutralizing heavily concealed coastal missile batteries, or forcibly conquering heavily defended coastal beachheads that high-altitude airstrikes alone simply cannot destroy. The American forces are actively assembled, locked, loaded, and fully ready for kinetic action. If you are finding this rigorous deep dive into complex military strategy, naval technology, and high-stakes geopolitics exceptionally valuable, please take a brief moment right now to hit the subscribe button for the Global News 24. Your unwavering, continuous support is exactly what allows our dedicated team to continue investigating far beyond the superficial mainstream headlines, enabling us to consistently bring you the raw, unfiltered facts, the in-depth technical analyses, and the unvarnished truth about the escalating global conflicts that are fundamentally shaping our modern world. Now, we must meticulously discuss the potential #1 strategic target for this highly impressive American Expeditionary Strike Force, the notoriously critical Karg Island. According to cutting-edge, real-time maritime tracking data published by Kepler and thoroughly corroborated by geopolitical intelligence analysts, this relatively small coral island formation, located roughly 15 miles off the mainland coast of Iran, is the true structural backbone and the undeniable beating heart of the entire Iranian oil-based economy. To understand its importance, you must understand the geography. Most of Iran's extensive coastline is highly silty, muddy, and far too shallow for the world's largest commercial oil tankers to safely navigate. However, Karg Island is uniquely and naturally surrounded by exceptionally deep waters. This specific geological rarity allows colossal, very large crude carriers to berth directly at its gigantic, highly specialized offshore loading terminals. Historically, over the last 12 months, Karg has consistently processed and efficiently exported around 90 to 94% of the country's total seaborne crude oil exports. To put this immense scale into proper perspective, out of Iran's roughly 1.6 million barrels per day of nationwide crude exports, over 1.5 million barrels flow directly and exclusively through the heavily fortified pipelines of Karg alone. Even more impressively, from an infrastructural standpoint, the island houses colossal, sprawling industrial facilities with a total crude oil storage capacity hovering around a staggering 31 million barrels. While Iran has frantically attempted to build alternative export routes, such as the Gorey-Jask pipeline designed to bypass the strait entirely, its effective operational capacity remains widely estimated at a mere 300,000 barrels per day, an absolute drop in the bucket compared to the massive volumes handled by Karg. Therefore, if the tactical war planners at the Pentagon are actively searching for the ultimate, devastating pressure point to violently break the Hormuz blockade and forcefully compel the regime's immediate surrender, Karg Island objectively represents by far Tehran's greatest and most glaring single-point vulnerability. Disrupting its operations would immediately and entirely constrain Iran's financial ability to sell crude to global markets, starving the regime of its primary source of foreign currency. However, explicitly attacking a critical civilian and military installation of such immense magnitude, potentially causing cataclysmic, uncontrollable infernos there, or boldly attempting to land elite special operations forces to seize the entire island intact, would inevitably and instantly trigger that dreadful, apocalyptic, scorched earth doctrine the regime has promised. It is a massive, incredibly dangerous geopolitical gamble where the slightest tactical military miscalculation could literally and permanently set the entire Middle East ablaze. Some veteran military experts and cautious strategists warn that actively taking the island would be an absolutely disastrous, reckless decision that would practically ensure the bloody conflict lasts for many agonizing months, while hawkish advisors firmly argue it would instantly give the United States overwhelming, insurmountable leverage in any forthcoming diplomatic negotiations. The stakes literally could not be any higher. Human history, as we have seen time and time again, does not follow pre-written, predictable scripts, and absolutely no kinetic conflict unfolds exactly flawlessly like a sanitized computer simulation. Yet, time is running out in a maddening, universally terrifying way. The diplomatic hourglass is emptying at an exceptionally alarming speed right before our very eyes. The sand is no longer flowing slowly and predictably. Every single grain that falls represents hundreds of millions of dollars permanently evaporated from global markets and exponentially increased, undeniable risks of a catastrophic, civilization-altering conflagration. Of course, secret diplomacy can sometimes maneuver faster than marching, heavy armies. Rigid authoritarian regimes, even the most ideologically hardened ones, can suddenly and unexpectedly crack from within under immense, crushing external pressure. The most notoriously uncompromising national leaders can occasionally blink when directly faced with the terrifying prospect of total, unconditional annihilation. But the harsh, unforgiving strategic reality is that the allotted operational timeframe is closing inexorably and definitively. The highly interconnected global economy, which is already staggering under the immense weight of this crisis, absolutely cannot sustain this brutal situation of deliberate financial and logistical asphyxiation indefinitely. The central burning question, the singular issue that is currently haunting classified emergency meetings in every major political capital around the world, is whether a massive, bloody ground military operation is now totally, undeniably inevitable to permanently restore the free and secure flow of international commerce, or if President Donald Trump will somehow manage to successfully extract a miraculous, unprecedented peace agreement at the secret, high-stakes negotiating tables before the critical, universally recognized April 6th deadline abruptly and violently expires. We are quite literally watching contemporary history being written in real time, directly under our gaze, with massive, undeniably civilizational stakes on the line. The highly complex, shifting dynamics of this newly formed military coalition, the minute-by-minute tactical naval positioning, the global oil markets panicked to the brink of collapse by rampant speculation. Our dedicated team is actively tracking absolutely all of these crucial, rapidly moving variables on our channel to consistently keep you fully and accurately informed. In the next critical 72 hours, this extremely volatile, highly combustible situation could violently change in a dramatic, sudden, and totally irreversible manner, and you have a personal duty to be the absolute first to fundamentally understand what is rapidly unfolding. What happens next in these very waters will inevitably and permanently shape the geopolitical order of the entire world for many long decades to come. Leave us your detailed thoughts, your strategic theories, and your personal insights in the comments section down below. Do you firmly believe that a major, full-scale ground intervention by heavily armed American and allied expeditionary troops is now the only realistic geopolitical method to successfully reopen this absolutely vital economic strait? Or do you confidently believe that a secret, last-minute diplomatic compromise is currently being carefully forged in the quiet, shadowy diplomatic backchannels of Oman or Geneva? Share your comprehensive analyses and predictions with our growing community. And if you haven't done so yet, right now is the absolutely perfect time to hit the subscribe button and join the Global News 24, so you do not miss a single critical update on this rapidly escalating, world-altering global crisis. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay highly vigilant in these uncertain times, and we will absolutely see you very soon as these historic events continue to dynamically unfold.